Over to you, Dr. Taneja, sir.
Thank you, madam. It's really nice to be part of Hyacon. And at the outset, I am very thankful to Dr. Siddharth Shah, who is our Executive President of Hypertension Society of India. He is my mentor, he is my guru. And I'm thankful to Mr. Semrik Samar, who is from Micro Labs, for giving me an opportunity to be a moderator of this expert panel. I think it's not panel, it's expert and super duper experts panel. And I have with me Dr. Soumitra Ray, who is a professor of Vivekananda Institute of Medical Sciences. He is Director of Invasive Cardiology, AMRI Hospital, Kolkata. And he is Executive Committee member and ex-Vice President of CSI. So many, we have luminaries in this panel. Dr. Soumitra Ray, very well known, a great friend of mine, and he has represented our CSI in international conferences and founder president of Calcutta Cardiology Foundation. Trained in cardiology at Royal London Hospital, London and MRCP in UK. Friends, he is a great invasive cardiologist from Kolkata. The next panelist is Dr. Ashok Kriplani. Dr. Kriplani and myself, we share a common first name, Ashok. He is a nephrologist, Professor Emeritus and Head Department of Nephrology, Bombay Hospital Institute of Medical Sciences. He is a very thoroughly a gentleman, a gentle nephrologist, which is very rare to see in these days. He is a former president of Indian Society of Organ Transplantation and former president of Indian Society of Nephrology. Friends, those who have attended the last HSICon at Mumbai, he was the president of HSI at that time. He at the Mumbai conference, it was 2.5 days deliberation on hypertension, thorough deliberations, exhaustive deliberations, and every detail about the hypertension was discussed with Dr. Siddharth Shah, Dr. Shashank Joshi, Dr. Wander, Dr. Munjal. So many luminaries were there, and I feel pride that I have met him and I have learned a lot from him. And the third panelist is Dr. A.K. Pancholia, again a very good friend of mine. He is from Indore, Madhya Pradesh. Again, a cardiologist, clinical and preventive cardiologist from Indore. Convener of RSD Council of CSI, organizing secretary of First National CSI Heart Failure Conference 2015, national faculty in CSI and API, recipient of BC Roy Oration Award 2010 from MPIMA, recipient of Padma Bhushan, Dr. S.K. Mukherjee Chikitsa Seva Award, Charak Award, regularly writing chapters in Cardiology Update, Medicine Update. We have met so many times, thoroughly a gentleman, learned man, very capable man, Dr. Pancholia. And last but not the least, a very great luminary in the field of diabetes, Dr. Banshi Sabu, who hails from Ahmedabad and currently the president of RSSDI India. And in fact, he is the pioneer in diabetes India also. He is a fellowship of American College of Endocrinology, American College of Physicians, International College of Nutrition. When I read his CV, I wonder sometimes what is left further for any laurels or the certificates or the fellowship he has left. I think none. He is very capable, very learned man as far as diabetes is concerned. Today we will question him, rather grill him regarding the diabetes and hypertension, both in COVID, what has happened to both these diseases, how it has affected our health. Dear friends, let's go to the panel discussion. First of all, I will like to ask Dr. Soumitra Ray. Dr. Soumitra Ray, there?
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. How are you, sir?
We are all fine over here, sir. Thanks to all of you.
Great. Sir, starting, I will set the ball rolling with you on the first round. you know that COVID-19 is a pandemic and it is a very stressful situation for everyone, not only for the doctors, for the general public also. How has it affected the hypertension?
Yes, it's very relevant. Now, of all the comorbidities that have been found to be associated with COVID-19 severity of disease or outcome, hypertension tops the chart. But I will give you 3 statistics which will give you a conclusion by itself. From Wuhan in China, Lombardy in Italy, and New York City in America, from 3 continents, very early days of COVID in April, May, it has come, the statistics, that 60%, 50 to 60% of people admitted to CCU with COVID-19 or with serious COVID-19 have hypertension. Number 2 data, the average age of this patient is 63. Number 3 data, the average percentage of patients in almost all countries at the age of 60 who are hypertensive is around 50 to 60%. So it crosses each other. So that means as the age increases, the chance of COVID complication increases. So age is the most important incriminating factor, and hypertension is just associated with age. So a hypertension per se does not cause increased problem with COVID, neither the chance of having COVID nor the complications of COVID. But there is another aspect of it. If a hypertension is uncontrolled, there is target organ damage like kidney injury, like heart failure, then of course the patient is already moribund, and any further infection, be it COVID, causes a bad outcome. So that we have to keep in mind. Nobody has said in any clinical data whether just the history of hypertension is the association or uncontrolled or untreated hypertension is the association. Only I found out in the Mayo Clinic proceedings that they have clearly mentioned to their patients, to their population, that if your blood pressure is not controlled or not treated, then only it has got anything to do with COVID-19. If you are hypertensive but your pressure is controlled, just forget about it. You have got nothing to do with COVID-19 extra risk. So the vast majority of us are hypertensive, but we are controlled, like me, maybe you. So we should not worry about COVID-19 in an extra way. So that means automatically that during the COVID era, we need to be extra careful to control our blood pressure to the target range. That we are listening for the last 2 hours. What is the target? How should we achieve the target? We should be extra cautious and extra aggressive to achieve those targets during the COVID era.
Dr. Ray, in nutshell, that means COVID-19 has no direct relationship with hypertension.
Absolutely.
But as the age advances, hypertension increases, so the morbidity, mortality in COVID-19 also increases.
Absolutely.
Right, sir?
Absolutely, sir.
And since the COVID-19 pandemic has brought stress to the public as well as to almost everybody's mind, it has brought to the stress. Higher stressful conditions means higher blood pressure levels. Am I right, sir?
Yes, sir.
Great, sir. We go to now Dr. Pancholia. Dr. Pancholia, please.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Pancholia, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
As we have discussed with Dr. Sumitra, that pandemic COVID-19 has put many people under lockdown. Now unlocking has started, put so much of stress on the public's mind. Has it affected the lifestyle?
Well, there are, as you know, the lifestyle factors like salt, sugar, saturated fat, smoking, sedentary lifestyle, and stress, the other contributing factors for hypertension. All these factors are affected during COVID also. There are certain positive aspects and certain negative aspects also of the lifestyle factors. The positive aspect that the outdoor meals are cut down, the minimum of the outdoor meals, and there is minimum visit to the eateries, and there is there are no conferences, there are no marriages, there are no social functions. So there is a reduction in the salt intake, reduction in the saturated fat intake, and the reduction in the sugar intake also the patient. There's a positive aspects of that. Then there is reduction in the consumption of tobacco and the tobacco products, smoking, reduction in the consumption of alcohol also. So that is also, and there is a reduction in the exposure to the air pollution. So that is another positivity of this lockdown and everything. And there is a, there are more telemedicine now, which is now been enforcement of the telemedicine. So the people who are actually hypertensive and they are recording their blood pressure at home, the home blood pressure monitoring is there. So there is enhancement in the regularity of home blood pressure monitoring, and therefore indirectly controlling their blood pressure also. And moreover, the positivity on the other aspects also, as there is the online learning process also for the physicians, for the hypertension specialists, and for the family physicians. So there are understanding about the management of hypertension increase, what we have this webinar also, and therefore better control of the blood pressure of their patients. So they're the positive aspects, but there are certain negative aspects also there, like lack of exercise, more sedentary lifestyle, more time spending for the watching screen of the TV and the screen of the mobile also. Then there is more this non-availability of the drugs also, lack of investigations, and improper detection of the target organ damage related to the hypertension, because they are not visiting the doctors, only telemedication is concerned, so then we cannot detect the target organ damage also. So there are, and above and all, there is more depression, more anxiety, and more hostility. So there are some negative aspects, positive and the negative aspects of the lifestyle factors which are there, which we see in the COVID pandemic.
Thank you, Dr. Pancholia. That means COVID-19 has come as a blessing in disguise also. It has given some positive features in the sense that white coat hypertension almost gone, because the patient is not visiting the doctor.
Yes.
But the masked hypertension is getting unmasked, because the person is staying at home, doing all the activities at home, not visiting the doctors. So there is an unmasking of the masked hypertension also at the same time. And the third, which I have learned or seen, is the work from home culture, which the corporates, they are almost enforcing everybody. This is putting a lot of stress on the younger generation. So their hypertension, which was masked, getting unmasked. What is your take on this work from home culture?
There are again the two aspects of there. As the working from home, so there is a better sleep will be there, better relaxation will be there, because they are in the family atmosphere with their parents and with their children. So the stress levels is gone down. It is a positive aspect of that. But there are negative aspects also. Those who have lost their job because of the pandemic or the other factors, so they are under more stress, more depression. So the negative aspect of that also, the homework.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Pancholia, great. I think we have learned, we have gone a step further from aging and hypertension to the lifestyle. Now I will like to invite Dr. Kriplani, who is a nephrologist from Mumbai. Dr. Kriplani, please.
Good evening, everybody.
Sir, good evening. Sir, good evening.
Co-panelists.
Thank you, sir. And I want to ask you, since you are a nephrologist, hypertension getting a little bit uncontrolled during the COVID-19 times because of the stress, because of the work from home culture, lack of exercise, and so many other factors. Have you seen lately, when it was unlocked, that CKD has increased, or the incidence is remaining the same post-COVID?
Sir, I'll restrict my remarks first to your CKD question. See, the thing is that today statistics on CKD are less because patients are not visiting the doctors. And if the patient is seeing creatinine of 1.3, 1.4, he'll say, baad mein jata hai. So when it comes to CKD, there are three stages that worry us. One is 1 to 2 is not a major issue. 3, 4, and 5. Those in CKD 3 and 4 are at home, and when they get COVID, things go very bad. As against that, those who are CKD5 and already on dialysis or transplant, they are a different issue. And there in CKD, not on transplant but on dialysis, there is a 10 to 30% morbidity and mortality reported because the dialysis centers are not available. These are the worst affected. Those who are on dialysis, almost 10% in every unit, and in some units 30% have died. And a lot of the deaths have been due to not being able to get dialysis. And there the blood pressures go up and down because they're missing. As against that, CKD of transplant patients, they are the ones who, about 10%, they are more vigilant, more careful, they rapidly get admitted, they withdraw the immunosuppression, which I'll come to a little later in detail, and they get better care. So they're about 10% morbidity or mortality there. Now for CKD stage 3 and 4, which are at home, I would like to narrate a small case to you. A 26-year-old boy who is under my follow-up for last 12 years with stable CKD, 1.3 to 1.7, focal sclerosis on small dose steroid, doing very well, suddenly gets COVID because his parents also get COVID. He tells me, I'm not going to hospital. I say, nothing doing. You go to hospital. Sure enough, this person is on losartan twice a day for his proteinuria. When he goes to hospital before COVID, his creatinine is 1.7. He goes to hospital, his creatinine is 2. He is given remdesivir. And middle of the night, I get a call, potassium is 6.8. Here, this person has already lost 2 to 3 kilos. And what has happened is that the same dose of losartan, which was being given before in comfort because of his weight loss, not eating, hypoxia, fever, dehydration, goes into a hypotensive situation. So the CKD patient is forewarned to watch his pressure much more carefully than anyone else. And the first few days of COVID, when patient is not getting admission, is not able to, assess himself. He doesn't know how much urine. He's taking his same medicines, running high fever, 104, sweating. These lead to AKI. So the hypotension is more common. And this is my anxiety of my CKD patients. Not only hypertension, but hypotension. And then add to it, if they are on ACE and ARBs, this adds up to cause AKI. And this patient almost died. This is a true story. So I thought I would highlight that AKI on CKD is very common. Of course, AKI on its own is common. AKI is common because the virus can get into the tubules and in the glomeruli. That is a glomerulopathy and interstitial nephritis. AKI is also common in the late stages when the immunological disease comes and the serum complement is activated and the ferritin and the IL-6 are high, and they go on to various thrombotic microangiopathy due to the immune system. There the CKD, worse prognosis, they go into severe DIC and die. So there is a lot of AKI on its own, but for us hypertensive patients and those receiving hypertensive drugs for proteinuria like ACE and ARBs, they are the ones very vulnerable and should be warned that as soon as you get fever, call me and start reducing. And those who are on immunosuppression, reduce their immunosuppression also. So transplant patients, stop the mycophenolate, increase the steroids, and then they get well. So this is my nutshell of AKI and CKD. As far as hypertension goes, I'm in tremendous agreement with Dr. Pancholia said. The ordinary hypertension is not such a big problem. It's a reasonable thing. But when there is underlying CKD, the care should be of hypotension. Hypertension is easier to deal with, weight loss, etc. And hypoxia, they all lead to AKI. And those with CKD get very bad.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Great thing. As you have told, that hypertension can be divided into two groups, simple hypertension and complex hypertension. Complex hypertension means hypertensive associated with comorbidities or associated with certain target organ damage. So in complex hypertensive, we have a double jeopardy. During the lockdown, they did not get the proper medication. They were not following the diet properly. So a little bit of higher in the blood pressure, more resultant in target organ damage, getting COVID-19, admitting and going into AKI hypotension, creating further problems. So my dear friends, those who are listening to us, please be very careful. As Dr. Kriplani said, you have to bear in mind both the situations. During the lockdown, once the BP was rising, you have to take care of that because it is a very stressful condition. But post-COVID, when the unlocking is being done, you have to see that patient is not going into hypotensive, reduce the dosage of the ARBs or ACE inhibitors or whatever you are giving, so that patient may not go into hypotension and then precipitate AKI. Am I right, sir?
Yes, sir, absolutely. You have summarized what I said. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Now we go on to Dr. Banshi Sabu. Dr. Banshi, please.
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Sir, good evening. How are you?
All good, sir. Very, very good.
That's great. Sir, you are a diabetologist. I will ask you for the our learned audience to give them wisdom of pearls. As we are quite aware that diabetes and hypertension, these are the two great monsters. I always compare them. One is Ravana, another is Kant. So both bring a very bad name to the body, bringing very stressful conditions. During the COVID, how do you feel that diabetes was a little bit uncontrolled, with hypertension being uncontrolled, giving double jolt to the patient?
So first of all, thanks Dr. Ashok Taneja, and thanks to all panelists and organizing committee for giving me an opportunity. As you are saying very rightly that diabetes and hypertension, it's like a deadly duo, and many of our patients who are simultaneously suffering from diabetes and blood pressure both. As I will agree with Dr. Pancholia that some of the patients who were really doing very well during this COVID time and during this lockdown period, because they were taking care of these two non-communicable disease very efficiently at home, either not going by in parties, so not taking more salt, not taking more sweet. But there are 50% of the patient. It's like 50% of the patient. 50% of them are very, very careful as far as their blood pressure and diabetes is concerned. They started doing self-monitoring of blood glucose very regularly. They were talking to their doctors also. Teleconsultation was done more frequently. Their family members involved in the control of the sugar as well as for blood pressure. They started measuring their self-monitoring of blood pressure. I had seen maximum during this COVID time because they were worried about their blood pressure also. But at the same time, there are 50% other patients also that are either because of psychologically they are now feeling lonely at home, they are not going out, they are not having any social party or no socializing. At the same time, their sugar intake or their food intake is also increased, because otherwise when they were very busy in doing all other physical activities, their physical activity decreased and they started eating more. So there is a one class of the patients where their sugar and blood pressure, everything has become very uncontrolled also. We had seen some of the patients who had come now to show us, and they told that, Dr. Saab, during that period of time, we could not get the medicines, or we could not check our A1C, or where our blood pressure was not checked, or our last serum creatinine was done before 1.5 years, and it has not been checked during this period of time. Unluckily, many of our diabetic patients during their first 5 or 10 years, they are not keeping their good control. And many of them who are coming to us like in a tertiary diabetes care center, they have already some complications. So, I mean, they have patient with diabetes with CKD, diabetes, hypertension, LVH or LV failure or established cardiovascular disease. So their sugar which became uncontrolled had also affected their other comorbid condition also, and that had led to many more complications. As we also know that uncontrolled diabetic patients, if he unluckily develop COVID, it's not like the hypertension, because of their immune which will be low in these patients who have uncontrolled diabetes, found to have more complication during their hospitalization. It means a uncontrolled diabetic pre-existing or a newly detected diabetes which first time detected in hospital had led to more complication. Their morbidity and mortality is increased, and that's what the statistic is showing us. So I mean, diabetes is a during this period of time we had seen both. There are patients who have controlled very good diabetes at home, and there are patients whose sugar had become very uncontrolled also during this period of time. And particularly those patients who have other comorbidity like renal or cardiovascular, then the complications are increased during this lockdown.
Rightly said, Dr. Banshi. Really thankful to you. You are absolutely right in saying that diabetes, many people they have controlled very well, and some people they have not been able to control. In fact, one of the positive aspects of COVID-19 is that self-monitoring of blood glucose and blood pressure has increased tremendously. That is a positive aspect of it. In fact, I was seeing the sales figure of Omron for blood glucose monitor and the blood pressure monitor. It has zoomed up with pulse oximeter sales, like Amazon sales. Amazon also was very short of supply of all these monitors and everything. So that is a good aspect. But at the same time, if the blood pressure in the unlocking times, people have become a little bit careless, and the treatment has become also a little bit irregular, particularly with telemedicine and the medicines not available. Has it affected the blood sugar control?
Yes, definitely. And the more with the blood pressure, because one more thing had happened even during unlocking period, when patient is coming to the doctors, most of the doctors are not measuring their blood pressure. I had seen that many of the patients who are coming and their primary care practitioner or general practitioner had not measured the blood pressure because he is seeing the patient from distance. I am not talking of telemedicine. I am talking of these patients who had gone to consult their doctor face to face. Otherwise, what used to happen in India, when a patient used to go to his general practitioner, maybe for upper respiratory tract infection or for GI symptom, at least he will get his blood pressure measured by that doctor, and that is completely stopped in last 6 months. So now you will not get your patient who is coming to you and he will tell when your last blood pressure was measured. He will tell the doctor, when I was, last time I had visited my doctor maybe before 8 months or 7 months. And when you ask them, yes, have you visited in last 3 months? Yes, they had, but they had not got the measurement of the blood pressure by their general practitioner. So this has big effect on as far as blood pressure monitoring is concerned in the doctor's clinic, which used to happen. As you told that the white coat hypertension had gone away, but the white coat hypertension might have gone away. But still, I think the not measurement of a blood pressure in a GP clinic, which is very important place, it was an opportunity for many of our patients to be detected first time in hypertension, or at the same time, those patients who are uncontrolled, at least they could have measured their blood pressure at GP clinic, and they could have got better treatment by the specialist, or by even GP also could have increased the medication. As far as sugar is concerned, as I told you, self-monitoring of blood glucose is more commonly educated tool by the diabetologist or physician, but that's not so for the self-monitoring of blood pressure. We don't tell each and every patient that you should measure your blood pressure regularly. Even it is non-invasive, much easier, but still it is not. You told very rightly that Omron BP instrument sale has increased like anything, but still I don't think that each and every patient of a blood pressure or hypertension is measuring self-monitoring of blood pressure, which is done at home. So this is my real concern. I think this we should, through the Hypertension Society of India, this we should make it very, in sort of a advertise in such a way that each and every patient of India, which is very cost effective, because not a lot like a glucose meter where every time you have to measure, you have to pay for 20 rupees for a strip. It's not like that. So it's almost free. Once you buy, it's a long-term investment and hardly any regular expense for that. So I think that will help really for the patients of hypertension.
Right, sir. Thank you very much. By this, we complete our first round. Let's go to the second round. Dr. Sumitra Ray, please.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Ray, when the hypertension is little bit uncontrolled, there must be increased risk of cardiovascular morbidity and mortality. But as the people they are saying, and one of the newspaper reported that after the COVID-19, there was decreased incidence of acute MI and PTCA. How this has happened during the COVID time?
Yes, sir. It was an initial pleasure. We thought because of the environmental change, the patients are more relaxed, no pollution, no cigarette smoking at home, and so on and so forth. The acute coronary syndrome is decreasing. But it was going against the concept that coronavirus infection is an inflammatory condition in the body, which is supposed to promote acute coronary syndrome, plaque rupture. So we could not actually equate the two facts. But now it is transpiring that it was a false sense of security we are having. The ACS did not reduce. What happened? The patients did not present themselves to the hospital, to the emergency, to the clinical setup because of the morbid fear of catching the infection. They were suppressing their symptoms. And it was a worldwide phenomenon, not only in India. Now it transpired that out of hospital cardiac arrest has increased by 40 to 50% in France, Italy, and Germany because the initial heart attack was neglected. Heart failure has increased because they are not given thrombolysis, they are not given angioplasty. So after MI, heart failure was precipitated in more number of patients. Now in the coming year or coming months, we will see more and more of this missed and complicated acute coronary syndrome patients. So actually, sir, the number did not decrease, which was not supposed to decrease anyway. It was supposed to increase. But anyway, though, on the balance, I would say it was a false sense we had. Actually, the number hasn't decreased, and we should be ready to face more and more of these patients coming out with a history of heart attack by evidence 3 months, 6 months, or 9 months ago. We should be ready for that. That is again the importance of continuing and controlling the medicines, as Dr. Shabu was indicating, for hypertension, for diabetes, for all other risk factors, so that we do not push these patients towards further complications. We must at least control the risk factors very quickly, very important. And also, COVID infection per se, as you know, can precipitate acute heart attack, cardiomyopathy, as well as different kind of heart blocks. Now, all of us, the cardiologists, know that the heart block patients have increased with COVID positive patient. Now, most pacemaker patients coming in our hospital, 70-80% are COVID positive. It cannot be coincidental. COVID has got something to do with myocarditis and with heart block. So we are facing all these problems associated with COVID-19 with heart disease. So we must be prepared and keep them abreast. And if you ask me regarding the treatment, ACE inhibitor, ARB, am I supposed to say now or?
After some time, we'll
Okay.
touch Dr. Kuplani also.
That is what I would say. And one people also, I would advise people and physicians, do not suppress your symptom. The chance of having a COVID in coming to infection by coming to a hospital is much less than having the complication if you suppress the heart attack symptom. So even if you have a higher chance of getting a COVID infection, going to an emergency, please go and get yourself checked, and if necessary, get the proper treatment for an acute coronary syndrome. That is much more beneficial than having a COVID infection.
Rightly said, sir. It was a wrong sense of belief among the public that heart attack is decreasing by COVID-19. In fact, it was increasing. They were just suppressing their symptoms, and they were not going for the treatment because of the fear of the COVID. Initially, the fear of COVID was very great, and people were not ready to go to even to the clinics. That compounded the problem, I think. Now we go to Dr. Pancholia, please.
Sir, Dr. Manjula, sir, humble request, sir, since we are actually.
So I will
can
go
you
fast.
close it in 10 minutes, sir?
Yes, we'll close it in 10 minutes.
Right. Thank
Dr.
you, sir.
Pancholia, please.
Yes, sir.
Sir, what do you recommend? Just simple cardiovascular tests for patients who are a little bit under the lockdown in the unlockdown situation, but not very fearful of going to the clinics and the hospitals? How they should judge their cardiovascular risk? Simple test.
See, there are, as you know, the patients with hypertension are at the high risk of getting cardiovascular events, and which are recommended. And there are several tools also available for the detection of the cardiovascular risk, like SCORE, Framingham score, and Align, and so many. But we don't find any change in the guidelines regarding this risk stratification. Because there are not much change in those parameters. The only change is the endorsement of biomarkers, particularly biomarkers like biomarkers of thrombosis like D-dimer, biomarkers of heart failure like NT-proBNP, biomarkers of cytokine storm like interleukin 6, and biomarkers of acute kidney injuries like serum creatinine. So these, what I feel, these biomarkers should be endorsed now in the risk stratification tools. What we see in the heart failure, that is a Barcelona heart failure risk calculator. Now it's coming, which has endorsed 3 biomarkers of the different pathophysiology of heart failure. So I feel the biomarkers of this injuries should be included in this risk stratification tools what we have with the hypertension.
Absolutely right, sir. I have one thing in my mind, which I apply on so many diabetic patients actually. 6-minute walk challenge test. I ask them to walk for 6 minutes and how much distance they cover in 6 minutes. If they are able to cross 600 meters in 6 minutes, probably their cardiovascular system is quite healthy. If they are not, if they're less than 500 meters and less than 400 meters, 400 to 500, they have to be cautious. Less than 400 meter means we have to seriously look for any cardiovascular disease or peripheral arterial disease. I think it is quite a useful, just at home test one can undergo. Now I'll ask Dr. Kriplani, since we are quite short of time. Dr. Kriplani, please. Dr. Kriplani, sir.
Yes.
Sir, we have a raging controversy on ACE inhibitor versus ARBs during COVID treatment. Any take on this issue, sir?
Well, sir, when the pandemic started during April and May, there was a concept that the ACE inhibitor, the ACE2.
कृपलानी बोलता है तो अभी नहीं 2 मिनट में ही बोलता हूँ
जी सॉरी
मालूम है लेकिन कृपलानी बोलता है तो मैं नहीं बोलूँगा उसका खत्म होने के बाद बोलता हूँ.
Yeah, so the ACE receptor on the cells of the body, especially lungs, kidney, etc., they trap the S protein of the COVID virus and allow it to endocytosis into the cell. And it was thought that giving ACE inhibitor would promote more entry of the virus into the cell. But over a period of the next 2 months, data emerged that the usage of ACE and ARBs is not deleterious. And therefore, people who had actually started withdrawing these drugs for the fear of worsening the COVID status started reinstating them. Because not only the ACE which is on the cell membrane, but also the ACE in the circulation traps and actually takes away the virus from being endocytosed. So, summary, seems that there's an NEJM article which concludes it's neither deleterious to start nor is it mandatory to start. It doesn't protect, probably it doesn't hurt. So those who are continuing, continue, don't withdraw, because withdrawing ACE inhibitors can be deleterious both for heart and kidneys. So it's better to continue if you are going on. If you want to start, it's left to you, but it's mandatory because it's not necessarily helpful. That is the summary. I hear Siddharth wants to reduce the time factor, but this is the conclusion. ACE inhibitors give if you are continuing, give. Don't necessarily start if it doesn't protect.
Right, sir. Right, sir. Right, sir.
Dr. Taneja, can we stop now? Dr. Taneja.
just one small question to Dr. Bansi, very, very small question.
Dr. Taneja, if we can, we are getting too late. We are getting too late, Dr. Taneja.
Oh, okay, sir. No problem, sir. No problem.
Thanking everyone. Once again, thanks to Dr. Siddharth
Thank you, sir.
for
Thank you,
giving
sir.
us an opportunity. It was a great panel discussion. We enjoyed a lot, and I'm sure all the audience also must have enjoyed a lot. Thank you to
Thank you,
HSI and thanks to Dr. Siddharth.
Thank you, Dr. Taneja, Dr. Bansi. Thank you.
Sir. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you very
you.
much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for moderating it so well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.